There's something about early starts, when the world's still quiet, and it feels like you've got a bit of a head start on the day. There's no distractions, no noise, just a plan, and a very questionable alarm time. This isn't a normal trip for us. There's no campsite, there's no packing up the van, we're just grabbing what we need and we're going. It's one of those days where you don't really know how it's going to play out, but you just know it's going to be a long one. And probably one we're going to feel tomorrow.
So it's currently 5 to 7 and we're up and about on our way out to Bakewell, ready to start our 13-mile walk this morning. Both had some breakfast, we're having lots of chats about what the right shoes are to wear and hoping for the best. It looks a little bit foggy out, but I think the weather forecast is that it should stay dry, so fingers crossed. So whilst we have done a little bit of walking before, it's definitely only really been for a little leisure stroll. So 13 miles today is probably going to be the longest walk we've done yet. And in terms of training, we have done just one 9-mile walk and it about wrote us off. So we're preparing to be exhausted by the end of today.
And if we're being honest, we hadn't really trained for this properly. And like Claire said, one decent walk beforehand and just a ton of optimism. That's kind of the point of days like this, just saying yes to something and figuring it out as we go. So we met the rest of the group in the car park here in Bakewell. It was a real mixed group today. However, some of us were only doing 13 miles and the others were doing the full 26. We got everyone together, done our last few checks and made no hesitation with getting well on our way.
Where are we going?
Now that's a great question, Anna. Where are we going? So if you're familiar, we started using the Monsell Trail as a base. And it's a bit of an extended route as we followed it through Rowsley, up through Colton Lees. And we extended it at that point all the way up to Chatsworth House, looking around the Hunting Tower, and back through the long way all the way back to Bakewell where we started. And that was just a 13-mile route. So we started off nice and confident, which was probably our first mistake. And the first mile did come pretty easy. But I wasn't that naive to think the rest of it wasn't going to be a bit of an effort. With 1 mile done, we all gathered round just to make sure we was all happy with the pace. And we cracked on again. A few hills, and we were well on to mile 2.
So we're just over 2 miles in. Lots of hills already, which is expected. So getting a bit of a sweat on already, just with carrying all this camera gear, which isn't helping.
So what did I take? Of course my camera, an extra lens, the microphone, a DJI pocket, batteries for my drone, the drone itself and the controller, a DJI Action, essentials like first aid kits and EpiPen, water of course, sun protection like a hat and sun cream, and snacks just for the journey, and a protein shake to end. Now with that all crammed inside my normal camera bag, I was well loaded and I could definitely notice this on the walk. But there's no way I was taking on this trip without all the essentials, like the cameras, not the EpiPen.
Right, yeah, so far so good. And we've got another 10 miles to go. Well, 11. Here's hoping.
It didn't take long for everyone to settle into it. Little groups forming, chatting away, and getting well into the rhythm. And it especially helped that we all had something in common, and we was there for the same reason. And speaking of that reason, we was there to raise money for charity. And throughout the walk, I kept checking our crowdfunder page to see if we'd hit our target yet. And unfortunately we hadn't got there. Not at this point anyway. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Everyone giving up their time, pushing themselves a bit, all to raise money for something that really matters. But we pushed on, and this is the bit where it really settles in. You stop thinking about how far you got left and just focus on what's in front of you. Step by step, view by view, just ticking off each mile without thinking about the struggle. It wasn't all easy going though. You start to feel it creeping in. Little aches here and there, feet reminding you they still exist. Nothing major, just enough to keep things interesting. But what helped ease that pain, is we knew, as we entered the Chatsworth estate, we were so close to our first break, so this sign couldn't have been any more welcoming if it had tried. And as soon as we saw the Chatsworth house on our right hand side, we knew we were even closer. Claire's boots had started giving her some problems. Her feet were sore and the back of her knee started playing up. As we edged closer to our breaking point in Edensaw, we come across this wild herd of deers, which brought on a very welcome break, albeit for 30 seconds. But this was it. This spot right here in Edensaw, this is where the two heroes of the day, Jonathan and Sally, were awaiting us with snacks, goodies and drinks for a proper reset. And a huge thank you goes out to these two. When you're 7.5 miles into a walk and you see a sight like this, you can't help but overcome with joy. It was time to swap out boots for spare ones, relace the current ones, and get ready to press on with the second part. And at this point, if I had known what was about to come, I may have stayed sitting down for a minute longer, because we were now on our way up to the hunting tower behind the Chatsworth house in Stand Wood. We regrouped at the bottom of the hill, just to make sure everyone was happy to proceed, because the hunting tower at Chatsworth house brings on an elevation gain of 122 metres. That's not to be sniffed at. And I won't lie, I didn't really get the cameras out much for this point. I was too busy fighting for breath, so I didn't get a huge amount of footage, but we did make it to the top, eventually. And there it was, the hunting tower, standing graceful at the top of this hill, overlooking the incredible estate at Chatsworth. Obviously we stopped and got some pictures, because this was the perfect point to do so. Now I know it wasn't the finish, but it was an overwhelming sense of pride already. I mean, the walk up the hill alone, that was effort. So whilst we was having a bit of a break, I did check our route to see how much longer we had left. And luckily, we was on the home straight now. And thankfully, it was all looking like it was going to be downhill, which is what we needed. And as we left the Chatsworth grounds, we started cutting through some of the villages, ones that I recognised from walks that me and Claire would have done before we had kids, so that was a nice treat. And as we trekked on further, we kept finding ourselves going downhill, which, don't get me wrong, was a great break for our legs. And for me, on this part of the walk, time just seemed to disappear, because this went way quicker than the rest of it. And we started seeing places we recognised, or little signs that we were getting closer. And before we knew it, the camper van was back in our sights again. We'd almost done it.
So we're on the final few metres of our 13-mile walk, and we've made it. The whole team has made it. It's been a great trip. Hard work, but we've got there.
So yeah, just like that, 30 miles done and dusted, despite the lack of training. But a great effort from everyone that got involved, and especially the 26 milers. But the highlight of the day, we smashed our target. So a massive thank you to anyone that donated and cheered us along the way. It really did help, and all for a great cause. Thank you.